What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in today for another episode of Niners News here on 49ers Hive. My name is Zach Hernandez, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Matt Llewellyn. And today we're going to be talking about Deebo Samuel and him recovering from his injury. Matt, he recently posted a video to his Instagram account, kind of cutting on some soft surfaces.
I think he's like right on schedule. It does get me excited though. It means that he's at a point where there's probably not any significant setback, and there probably won't be. He's running on that particular surface as a rehab measure. I've seen people freaking out, like, why are they rushing him? You know how Twitter is. Everybody freaks out about everything. Everybody wants to play Doogie Howser MD on social. But they're like, hey, why are you rushing him? There's no rush, this and this and that. Reality is he's about 7 or 8 weeks removed from his surgery. So at this point, this is what you want to see. And I think they are taking their time with him, and the team wouldn't have him doing this stuff or allow him to do this stuff if they weren't in on it and wanted him to do this. So everybody's at the facility now. So he's under team care. So all that freaking out is kind of weird. But it is exciting to see it. You hope he gets back, because he's, as of right now, he's kind of the de facto wide receiver one. He's the most dynamic playmaker we have outside of George Kittle, and especially in the receiver room. So, who's to say? I just think that people freak out because they have the lingering after effects of Trent Taylor taking so long, and Trent Taylor, barely being out of a walking boot as of a couple months ago. So everybody is going to be overly cautious with that. But, it's good to see, they're not super hard cuts. He's not, running routes or anything, but it's a good first step.
Yeah, when I saw that, I thought, ooh, okay, it's nice to see, because, he captioned it 7 weeks post-surgery. It is right along schedule. And, yeah, it is funny, like you said, people are kind of saying that he's being rushed. He should take his time. I think he wouldn't be doing this if the trainers and the doctors weren't okay with it. I don't think they'd risk injuring him further, knowing how much is on his shoulders and how big of a plan they have for him this year. He's a big part of this offense now moving forward, so they can't really risk further injuring his leg or his foot. So I don't think that he would be doing that if he wasn't supposed to. But right. It's nice to see. And Matt, as a medical professional, is that kind of what you're expecting to see as far as like the cutting and the movement in that foot at this point?
Well, I don't particularly deal with like foot injuries or things like that. I'm more like acute trauma and acute patient situations with like illness and stuff like that, obviously. But from everything that I know about injuries like this, it's one of those things where if you see this stuff, you're on the right track, so it would be more concerning if we weren't seeing stuff, because as a player who's obviously chomping at the bit to get out there, and you got the beginning of a new season, you have unfinished business from last year in the Super Bowl. You're talking about a guy that wants to be out there bad. And if we weren't seeing anything at this point, because training camp is where everybody's like, okay, what's going on with this? I'm sure everybody's, waiting to see how D Ford looks exploding off the line, and everybody's going to put that under a microscope. With everything as boiled down as it is, considering circumstances, with a lack of news, and it's not like we can go out to the facilities and take a look. We're just waiting for any information that we can get, whether it be on social media, whether it be through the NFL and their filming and stuff like that. Everybody's just waiting on pins and needles to see what the thing is. So if we weren't seeing anything from Deebo, I think that would be more indicative of a problem. But because he's showing this stuff, it shows me that he's probably right on schedule.
Yeah, and for me personally, I think that he is still going to have a pretty big year, even with a couple of games missed. I'm not sure if he'll top 1,000, maybe in total yards, but I still think that he's going to have a big chunk of this offense that's going to be carved out for him. Do you think that he'll have more total yards than he did last year, even with the games missed from injury?
That's hard to say, because looking at who's coming back, I mean, if Trent Taylor stays healthy, if Jalen Hurd stays healthy, how Brandon Ayuk comes in and contributes, George Kittle stays healthy, Jet McKinnon, what's he going to bring coming back? I mean, you all of a sudden look, and if everything goes correctly, this team is flush with offensive talent. So to say, I mean, man, I would expect it because I think he had like 800 or 900 yards from scrimmage last year, and I think he could do a lot better than that. But it's hard to tell which way the wind's going to blow as far as who's Jimmy Garoppolo going to really bond with outside of George Kittle, who we obviously know he's a big fan of. But it did seem like him and Deebo Samuel did have the rapport. It'll be interesting to see because we know how much he likes Trent Taylor. If Trent Taylor takes away from that, it's a weird thing to say. It's always better to have too much talent than too little. But that means that some of that production from better players or whatever kind of can be brought down the more talent you have. So it remains to be seen.
Yeah, it's going to be the case of a lot of mouths to feed. But he, like we've said before, he's going to be the de facto number one receiver going into this year. And until somebody else steps up and proves otherwise, he's the best receiver they have on this roster right now. And I don't think that's, by a stretch by any means. He showed last year that he's extremely physical. He's not afraid to go over across the middle. He's not afraid to take the big hits. He'll do whatever it takes to get the job done. And that's exactly what you want in a receiver. He's a running back running out there running routes, So does that give you any sort of worry that how physical he does play, that he might re-injure that foot?
Not so much the foot, but I do think that play style will lead to, little knick-knack, ticky-tack injuries. And so, but you worry about that with every player, when George Kittle got that 4th and 2 in New Orleans and the dude was grabbing at his face mask, and at the end you see him go down kind of weird and he was kind of stiff-legged, and you're like, man, got to watch those knees. I mean, on that crackback block or whatever, when he was pulling, and the defender just went straight into his knee. I mean, and, he had that thing going on where everybody just held their breath, So you always worry about that with physical players just because the game is physical. And, the harder you hit somebody and the harder you get hit, the more likely you are to be injured. So from that perspective, I think there's a little bit more worry. Not that you sit there, with bated breath every time he touches the ball, but as far as the foot goes, no, I don't foresee him re-injuring it because he placed the contact so much, especially when he broke the foot. There was no contact there. That was just rumor was he was wearing cleats that he wasn't supposed to be wearing, and that kind of led to the injury or whatever. So, and I have no idea whether that's true or not, but it was something where he was running routes and he broke the foot. So from that aspect, no, I'm not too worried about that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's not like it's a arm or a shoulder or something where you're, going into people constantly. And yeah, just real quick on that George Kittle, I don't know if you saw the 49ers posted that full game on their YouTube channel the other day, and they posted it on their Instagram, and George Kittle commented, "Can we just skip the first play on offense, please? Because that's where he took that knee to the helmet, or the helmet to the knee." So
yeah,
scary time, man. I know. Yeah. I was watching that at work on my phone, and I was just like, "Oh no, don't tell me George Kittle's seriously injured."
Yeah. It's a literal game of inches. I mean, like just hit that any other way, and he could have a torn ACL and be done. So yeah, that was a scary one.
All right, guys, I think we're gonna end it there. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. Our handles are below on the screen, and make sure you subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and drop a comment below. Thanks for tuning in.
Go ahead and click the bell for all your notifications. Until next time, go Niners.